Biggest UK and EU EV myths. Yes, we're back. We're back, and I've got a couple big announcements at the end. I do want to say a welcome back to Patreon to Jim and Sydney Ringgold, and welcome to Giles, Ivor, and Dell. Thank you so much for your decision to support the channel. Yeah, what keeps me going around the world. And this is the full version, which normally goes out on Fridays, but I was very sleepy after a very long ride home, so I got some sleep and I feel good. So yeah, let's talk about some myths, shall we? Juice outside the US. This is in response to, the idea of robotaxis, but really about Uber and all that. Juice outside the US is too expensive. UK normal electric is 40 cents per kilowatt hour. That'd be about 44 cents US. Supercharged at 55p. That'd be about 60 cents US. Other 150, the fast kilowatt. Oh God, you're not going to do an Uber on Tesla on those electricity prices. Well, the thing is, electricity prices are higher in Europe than they are in the US, but gasoline prices are so much higher. So much higher. And so, yeah, you're just not going to do it. Well, let's look at the gasoline prices. These are in liters. So, yeah, it's very expensive. You can just roughly quadruple. So, Norway, about $8 a gallon. Denmark, $8. All these countries, about $8. You can get down around $7 in places like Ireland, Portugal, and Belgium, and all that. It's quite expensive. It's quite expensive. So, even though the electricity is more expensive, it's not proportionately, it's still a cheaper drive. Upgrading to an electric vehicle in London, this is on Uber's site themselves. They're saying, yeah, do it. Why switch? Well, a bunch of reasons. Exclusive deals, no zone charges. You can get higher trip payments on Uber Green, which some people just choose. But already, the EVs are here. Uber fully electric option expands to all of London. They've already got set to have 10,000 by the end of last year. Last year or this year? Let's check the date. Last year. And expanding even further beyond that. So electric cars are already being used on Uber in London, in England, in Europe generally. In the Netherlands, waiting by the taxi stand, we saw Mach-E's, we saw Teslas, I think I saw a Renault Zoe maybe. I don't remember for sure on that. But we saw all kinds of electric cars constantly running through the taxi queue. And in a lot of places in Europe, Uber is taxi. Some places might have restrictions that say you have to be licensed, and so the taxi guys will just grab the Uber app and use that in addition to just being a regular taxi. And this month, Uber announced, this is last year, a £5 million investment in EV charging points across London. Over 700 on-street electric vehicle chargers installed across Brent, Newham, Redbridge, boosting stock of electric EV chargers by 7%. So it's still moving forward. But here's a neat one. London has a congestion charge. If you want to go into the city, this little circly part of the city here, you have to pay. And not just every day, but every time you go in and out of it. Every time you cross that border, you have to pay £12.50 is the daily charge. So that means $15, $15.56. So like if you're doing 20 days of work, that's $300 a month, man. That's a lot of money. $300 a month. Do you know how much more car you could buy if you weren't paying $300 a month? Because electric cars do not pay the congestion charge. That's made London the quietest major city I have ever been to. It's crazy. There's no constant acceleration out the window, but also they're very polite people. They use the horn as sparingly as BMW drivers do with the blinker. It's nice. So if you were to target an extra $300 a month, that would be $18,630 more you could pay on your car at 5%. So if you're looking at a $30,000 ICE car versus a $48,000 EV, the EV is cheaper if you're driving in London. Now, London is a bit of an exception. Most places don't have a congestion charge, but in London, it makes sense. It is a no-brainer. That's to say nothing of the savings in fuel. That's to say nothing of the savings on maintenance and repairs, oil changes, all that stuff. Washington State has some of the cheapest electricity, mainly due to all the hydropower. Yes, we do. And also we get a rebate when the power is exported to other states. On my bill each month, it says, by the way, here's how much money we're giving you back because we sold the power to California. So let's go over another myth. Cybertruck's too wide. It'll never make it. It's too wide. It's 79.8 inches wide. And that might not even be the final width. Yes, it will. There's a road restriction in the US that says over 80 inches and you need special different stuff. 80 inches is the target. It'll be under that. And we've seen it. It's not bigger than the prototype. 79.8, reasonable. So how big is that? Well, the Model 3 is already 72.8 inches wide. It's only 8 inches wider than that. Model S, famously wide car, nice big hips, 78.2. It's less than 2 inches wider than the Model S. Now, mind you, the Model S is a very big car. But what about coach buses? 8'4". They're 8'4" wide. That's 100 inches. It's 2.5 feet wider, about, than a Cybertruck. Could you fit those? You can fit a giant coach on roads. Now, these are exceptions because my search was tour bus on narrow roads Europe, but they do still fit. I've been on these tour buses on very small streets that look like this. They fit. That's a one-way street, probably. You can still get around at 100 inches of width. I'm not saying you should buy something 100 inches wide, but look at this DHL truck here and this delivery van here. These still fit on European roads, and these are as wide as a Cybertruck. If these couldn't fit, there would be no pickups in Europe, and there are pickups. People don't use them as daily drivers. They use them as work trucks, and they're everywhere. Every city I was in, I saw pickup trucks. A lot of Toyota Tacomas. Look at this, a bunch of F-150s for sale in England. Well, surely they won't fit. I mean, I wouldn't want to drive one on European roads, but I don't think I'd want to drive something this big on US roads either, unless it was a Cybertruck. So what about range anxiety? Is that a concern? Is that something we should be worried about? Maybe. But in Europe, it's far less common to have range anxiety than here. Well, Greece has the highest level of range anxiety. Yeah, and they're more spread out. They're not quite as dense as other places. I feel like the people concerned with range anxiety are not the same ones concerned with width of the vehicle. So in London, they still make these, you know. These adorable little London cabs. This company makes them in electric. They're everywhere. I've ridden in one. Got to ride in one in Farnborough. It was very cool. And I took a little video inside. I don't know if it'll be in any way useful. Rob wants to know if I got sunburned in Ireland. I got sunburned probably in Ireland too, but I definitely did in England because my people are not familiar with the sun. We have a great suspicion of it. Isn't it weird that there's a big bright orb in the sky and you're not allowed to make eye contact? Bit fishy. So what's the range on the electric cab? Well, the would like to pretend range is 470 kilometers. And so you can subtract, 10 to 20% to get the actual EPA rating, which might still be generous. But that means you can get 292 miles of range on that London electric cab. That's more than enough. If you're doing 300 miles a day, you're going to wear through that car entirely in a matter of years. And London electric cabs don't. They stick around forever. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. So 150 miles each way. How far can you go with a range of 200 kilometers each direction? Well, from London, you could get to Wales. You could drive to Wales and back on a single charge. You could go all the way to the north. You can go all the way to the south. You can go, you can go through the Channel and get to Europe, but... And from Berlin, similar kind of numbers, 200 kilometers each way. You can get all the way across the country. You can go a long, long way. Range anxiety, not as big of a deal. Then you've got cars like the Aura Funky Cat, which I got to see it fully charged. Check it out. I got an interview with a rep from there. It's a pretty neat car. It looks real nice. It's got a lot of retro touches that make it adorable. It only comes one way, fully loaded. You just pick your colors, and there you go. And I think it looks great. It has a significantly shorter range, but it's still more than adequate, and these cars are selling. They're selling well. And Aura has another car coming, a larger one, more of a Model 3 competitor. It doesn't have a name yet. They're calling it the Aura Next. So the range, 193 miles. So you can still go 80, 90 miles one way and still get home on a single charge. Or go round trip, 350-ish miles. These are selling because things are closer together. People in Europe don't do these 3 hours like it's no big deal kind of road trip. That's kind of a big deal. When you're going that far, you're probably going to take the train. It's quicker. It's more efficient. It's cheaper. And I think it's better. It's no stress. So then the question, the big one I hear is the competition is coming. I hear that in every country, but especially in Europe, it actually appears to be true. So if you look at the list of best-selling cars, you're going to find some names you may not be familiar with. Tesla, of course, Fiat 500e, we probably saw a few of those. Peugeot E208, Kia Niro, Skoda Enyaq, which is a rebadged Volkswagen, I believe. Renault Zoe, Kona, Dacia Spring, Ioniq, Mini Cooper. Renault, we don't get those here, not in electric. Not at all, I don't think. Opel, Polestar, Peugeot, Nissan Leaf, BMW, Citroën. And the Mustang sold 11,800 units in this period, which was last year. Yeah, this was from last September, so this is a bit out of date. And you can tell it's a bit out of date because there are not very many Chinese brands on the list yet. The Aura Funky Cat, I don't believe is on this list because it only came out in November and it's already selling quite well. Volkswagen, Mercedes EQE. There is a lot more competition. When you meet EV people in the US, most of them say, I have a Tesla. Because Tesla has so much market share here. When you meet EV people in Europe, most of them don't have a Tesla. At Fully Charged, the question was often asked of the panelists, of which there were a ton. It was 3 days of panels every 45 minutes or so, maybe every hour, on 2 stages. And all of them, oh, I have a Renault, I have a BYD. These guys are coming in real hot. Is competition coming for Tesla, for Volkswagen, for Porsche? Yes, and it's coming from China. Here are some Chinese brands you may or may not have heard of. Xiaopeng, NIO, BYD, of course. Geely, SAIC, maybe you haven't heard of it. Great Wall Motors, that's the Aura Funky Cat, among others. BYD, yes. Chery, Dongfeng. That is, first of all, what a great choice for name. I'm going to hop in my Dongfeng and scope for some ladies. I don't know. But there are, and the Wuling, there's a ton. There's an absolute ton. And even looking on Wikipedia, we see a Western bias. Wikipedia is not as big in China. So when you look at the list of electric vehicle manufacturers, you don't see accurate, complete, thorough representation. I asked at a panel on which Lars from Best in Tesla was a guest, I asked how many of these countless Chinese EV brands are we likely to see exported in coming years? And the answer from Elliot, who's a contributor to Fully Charged, and from the host, Robert Llewellyn, who runs Fully Charged, was a lot and quickly. More specifically, Elliot said we're going to see dozens exported to Europe and other markets, not so much the US, in the next 2 to 3 years. And what Robert Llewellyn said was, we have had Chinese brands come to us during Fully Charged and say, we would like to premiere our new car, which will be sold in Europe, at one of your events. They expect 10 new brands from China to enter the European market this year. Now, these aren't Tesla quality necessarily. Few cars are. These aren't Porsche quality. Very few cars are. These are companies that are making good cars at good prices. They're not rock bottom cheap. A guest asked, well, how come I see a $15,000 car in China, and by the time it gets to the EU, it's $40,000-$50,000? And Elliot had a great answer. He said there's two reasons. The first is they're not importing base models. They don't want the reputation of being a cheap car. They want the reputation of being a good car. So part of it is you're only getting an up-optioned, highest quality vehicle. And the second reason is if the price is still too low, we're going to jack it up because we can't build them fast enough necessarily. And the price is part of the cachet. If we sold them at a loss, if we sold them just to get market share, we would run the risk of getting that reputation of being a discount brand. We don't want that. We want the reputation of being a good brand, maybe a premium brand. So I do want to thank my patrons, but remember, I've got two big announcements coming up right after I thank them, and then we're going to get into the Q and the A. Thanks to my patrons who get early access, bonus content, all that good stuff. This is likely a little bit out of date, because I've been on the road. I tried to update it real quick before the show. I may have missed some. There may be some inaccuracies. If there are, let me know. Well, there it is, and there you go. If you enjoyed this video, head on over to my second channel, MyTeslaLive, where these come out every Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific, and we have a lot of fun. We get active in the chat, we answer questions, and you help me make it an even better story. So I thank you for that. So what did I miss? What did I misunderstand? Stay tuned, stay juicy, and I can't wait to hear from you clever robots on the flippity flop.